32 years ago, was listening to this very engaging and thought-provoking radio personality on a local talk station. Indeed, the more I listened to Dennis Prager, first on his weekly Religion on the Line program, and then on his daily talk show, the more I read his books, the more I was convinced that the day would come when our paths would cross, and that he would somehow play a role in my life's work. Sure enough, that day came in 1986 when Chabad of the Conejo hosted its first Dennis Prager lecture at the North Ranch Community Center. The event sold out almost as quickly as we let the word out that Dennis was coming to speak for us, which, by the way, is a feat Dennis has repeated year after year after year. While I was tapping into Dennis's talents and gifts as a thinker and speaker, he and I developed a very close, personal, and meaningful relationship. I can honestly say that my life has been greatly enriched by having Dennis Prager in it as a friend, a sounding board, a confidant, an honorary brother. I cherish the many memorable conversations he and I have shared, especially at the Shabbos table in my home, and how whenever anything of significance happens in our lives, whether it's a family simcha, a building dedication, a community milestone, Dennis is always there with love, with warmth, and with pleasure. I'm sure a number of people in this room remember how back in 1999, when we were looking to start up the Conejo Jewish Day School, Dennis, who was living close by at the time, was one of the first to jump on board and help spearhead the project. As a matter of fact, he opened his own home for the experiment, so that the first classes taught by my wife Mati were actually held in the back house of his ranch-style property, shared by some friendly farm animals. And the kids loved it. In addition to being a strong believer in Jewish education, who himself gives classes in the Bible and various Jewish subjects, Dennis has a profound appreciation for the distinctive leadership role the Jewish people are called to play in this world. He takes the mantle of being a member of God's chosen people, a light unto the nations, very seriously. As such, he is always seeking out ways in which to promote the ideals of ethical monotheism, even beyond the Jewish world, as mandated by the Noahide Code of Universal Ethics. Likewise, in all that he does, Dennis seeks to effect a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of God's name, to introduce more goodness and sanctity into all the areas of human pursuit and endeavor, from the macro to the micro, as he puts it, from world affairs to politics, from ultimate issues to day-to-day happiness, from parenting to male-female relationships, and all subjects in between. If it somehow affects our lives, Dennis Prager addresses it in his uniquely profound, astute, incisive, and compelling way. His radio talk show is heard by millions of people in this country every day on the Salem Radio Network, and I thank all the delegation that's here from Salem Radio. His show is also heard globally via the internet. He is a syndicated columnist, a bi-weekly columnist for the Los Angeles Jewish Journal, and a New York Times best-selling author of 6 books, including 2 books on Judaism, with another on the way, all which remain in print and in high demand. Having lectured in 45 of the 50 United States, 9 of Canada's 10 provinces, and on all 7 continents, to Jewish, Christian, and secular audiences alike, Dennis has been named by Toastmasters as one of America's 5 best speakers. He is widely sought after by television news shows for his opinions. His latest project, the internet-based Prager University, which produces 5-minute courses by some of the world's most important thinkers on almost every subject of human interest, is getting millions of hits each and every day. Dennis Prager's 2002 documentary, Israel in a Time of Terror, provided a powerful look at how Israelis deal with the daily threat of terror. His short video explaining the Middle East conflict has been seen by more than 10 million people, and his defense of Israel at Oxford University has also gone viral. My friends, at a time when Israel's adversaries, both pronounced and nuanced, are using smears and distortions and slogans and boycotts and blatant lies to try and disguise their underlying Jew hatred in attempts to weaken and harm the only Jewish state in the world, we should only be so very thankful that there are voices of reason, voices of intelligence, voices of clarity, voices of eloquence, voices of persuasion, and voices of courage, like the one belonging to Dennis Prager, speaking out strongly and unapologetically for the truth and for the rightness of Israel's cause. Indeed, nothing makes me prouder than hearing a man as smart and as influential and as proudly Jewish as my friend Dennis Prager, using the powerful megaphones of his compelling radio show, his masterful pen, a fountain pen no less, and his eloquent speeches to call things as they are in global matters and to make the case for the morals and values upon which this country was founded. As much as I know, I put my friend on the spot by asking him to accept tonight's award, given that he typically says no to all such requests. I felt justified in pushing my case because it's high time that the greater community be given the opportunity to salute and to say thank you to a man who embodies integrity and courage as a spokesperson for goodness, decency, and deep moral conviction. And if any community was gonna do it, it might as well been ours. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the recipient of Chabad of the Conejo's 2016 Voice of Courage Award to my dear friend, Mr. Dennis Prager. I'd like to ask all the Chabad rabbis in the room to come up on stage.
But I won't take too long because then you won't listen tomorrow. You know, enough of Prager. I had him last night. I don't need him in the morning. And besides, it's getting late. But I do have a few things to say. I am not one who likes to be honored. There are many reasons, not because I'm particularly humble or modest, but because I am too young. I associate being honored with having one foot in the grave, and you want to know what your funeral will sound like before you die, and so it's a touching thing actually to be able to hear such things said from people that you actually care for, as I do for Rabbi Bryski. We are very close. He's actually the only rabbi I call, one of the only rabbis I should say, and the only Orthodox rabbi that I call by first name. I call all clergy by their title. I'm very old-fashioned in that way. I want to honor all clergy. I still say father to every priest, and even if they say call me Michael, I still call him father. Same with pastors and of course rabbis. But Moshe Bryski and I, and Mati Bryski and I go back quite a while. After I divorced my home for Shabbat for quite some time, on Friday evenings was their home. I will never forget them for it. The joy and the warmth that they provided me at a difficult time. These are things that one never forgets. As you probably know, if you listen to my show, I am a big believer in gratitude. I think it's the greatest outside of courage, oddly enough. It is the greatest human trait because it's the mother of both happiness and goodness. You can't be a happy person if you're not grateful, and you can't be a good person if you're not grateful. But the only way to stay grateful is to keep it in mind. So you have to remember, and it's an interesting question because we have forgotten to be grateful to America. This is a very big worry of mine, that there is a generation arising, like it says in the book of Exodus, and there arose a new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. There arose a new generation of Americans who did not know America. This is, I fear this very deeply, as you probably know. And I thought the nicest thing, or the best thing that I could do, is just to tell you a little bit about how Judaism has affected my work, which is overwhelmingly in the non-Jewish world. After all, most of America is not Jewish. Although if you grow up in Brooklyn, you do think they are. I remember, it's built into me to want to know people who are different, who are other than I am. I remember, because I grew up in the Yeshiva world in Brooklyn, and I never met non-Orthodox Jews, let alone non-Jews, but the mailman was not Jewish. And I remember waiting for him to bring the mail just to talk to him. How many kids do you have? What do you like? What are your interests? It was like, oh my God, I'm getting to know a Gentile. It was so exciting to me. So this has always been an issue, but I obviously talked to a cross-section of America, and most of the people in America are not Jewish. It's just this is the way it is. And but I have done something that I'm proud to say, and that is I have brought insights from Judaism to the non-Jewish world. See, I consider Judaism a hidden treasure, and Jews have decided to hide it. I don't consider it is a tragedy, but I blame Jews for doing that. If you're given a treasure, you should not hide it. The Torah is a treasure. The Tanakh is a treasure. Our learning is a treasure, and if you only do it with Jews, then why did God give you that treasure? He's interested in everybody, not just Jews. That's basic Jewish doctrine. So I am living a dream that I had from childhood of taking this great treasure and bringing it to the world. Not to convert them, well, yes, to convert them to, as Rabbi Bryski said, ethical monotheism, with the belief that God wants us to be good. All really God most wants of all, that's what he wants. It's so simple, people rebel against him. They think he wants so much more than that, but that's really what he wants. And it's not gone well, in case you've missed the newspaper recently. Anyway, I just want to tell you one story, though you will enjoy immensely, about how it's easy to think everybody's Jewish, not just Jews. One of my earliest speeches in my 20s was in Louisville, Kentucky. I was sitting next to a woman, and we started to talk, and she asked, she was from Louisville, and she asked, why are you visiting Louisville? I said, I'm going to speak to the Jewish community, and nobody has no opinion about Jews. Nobody yawns when you say Jew. So she started to ask questions and say things. And then it struck me that she really thought Jews had this tremendous amount of influence, and I decided to ask her a question. I said, I'm just curious. There are, I guess at that time, there were about 250 million Americans. I said, there are 250 million Americans. How many Jews do you think there are in America? And she said, 50 million. And I said, well, actually, there are just 6 million. And then she thought, and then said, they must all live in Louisville. So it is possible to think there are a lot of Jews when they really aren't. It wasn't just my idiosyncratic Orthodox Jewish upbringing. But I have wanted to bring these insights, and let me give you a few. It started tonight. It was awesome, and I wrote it down because I had not heard the song before, but I gather it's a big song in Israel. Because the words were, Mitzvah Gedola Lihiot B'Simcha. Those were the words of one of the songs that was beautifully sung this evening. And of course it means, it is a great commandment. The mitzvah means commandment, not good deed. It's translated as good deed, but it means, of course, commandment. It is a great commandment to be happy. Where do you think I got my happiness hour and the belief that it is critical for people to act happy, and that happiness is a moral attribute, not an emotional state? I got it from Judaism, from things like that. Or how about this? Take an insight that everyone knows this in Jewish life, anyone who knows anything about Judaism, but almost nobody has connected the dots. You're not allowed to sit Shiva. You cannot continue your 7 days of mourning after the death of a family member, of an immediate family member, on Shabbat. That's an amazing thing. You have just lost your spouse of 50 years, your child, God forbid, or any of them, God forbid. Your parent, well, that not God forbid, you have to lose a parent. As my mother, may she rest in peace, said, parents should die before their children. There was wisdom in that. But still, losing a parent, if you've loved them, is a big deal, obviously. You're not allowed to mourn on Shabbat. That's an amazing statement that somehow or other happiness can be induced by sheer will. I got this all from Judaism. During the Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton affair, dark time in America, everybody on radio, virtually everyone, was telling Monica Lewinsky jokes. I remember I went to San Francisco to broadcast a show, and I followed one of their most popular broadcasters. He devoted the entire hour before I took over to Monica Lewinsky jokes. Interestingly, a secular Jew. And I thought it was disgusting. Monica Lewinsky is created in God's image. You can't humiliate a human being by telling jokes about her on a radio station. And I forbade jokes. I said, if you want to call with a joke about Monica Lewinsky, don't call my show. I will not take it. And I got that from Judaism. Whoever humiliates someone in public, it is as if you had shed their blood. Because the Hebrew for humiliate means to whiten. So literally, the Hebrew is whoever whitens their neighbor's face in public, it is as if they had shed their blood. It is a brilliant play on words. And I have always taken that, and I have never, I don't believe in 33 years, humiliated a caller or a public figure even. I have been very critical of public figures, but never humiliate. I got this from Judaism. And I can write a book, I might one day, in fact, on just of the aphorisms. How's this for a great one for a talk show host? I learned this in Yeshiva in probably the 3rd grade. Tishmana oznecha mashapicha medaber. Your ears should hear what your mouth says. What a great, and I took this seriously. I didn't take school seriously. I graduated in high school in the top 80% of my class. I'm waiting for all of you to catch the meaning of that. That's very important that you get that. That means the bottom 20%. I never took school, I did in college, but I didn't take school seriously, but I did take the ideas seriously. I didn't care about grades, but these ideas really sank into me. Let your ears hear what your mouth says. What an awesome thing. Be aware of what comes out of your mouth, because again, Torah Hebrew, the word for word is the same as the word for thing. Words are things. They're not just words. And all of these concepts, these were things that I got out of Judaism. The whole, I'll tell you my favorite, and I ask my son, daughter-in-law, and wife for forgiveness because they have heard this so often. They will probably go on their phones right now and just check for mail. But my life was changed in 4th grade, and I'll tell you the story in a moment, but I want to tell you the upshot. Many of you know the great story of the Talmud of the non-Jew, the pagan, in fact, who came over to the 2 great rabbis of the era, Shammai and Hillel, and said, could you summarize Judaism while standing on one leg or one foot? And Shammai hits him with his cane and says, what, are you kidding? In effect, I'm not going to summarize this great religion while standing on one leg. Beat it. Well, he was rejected by the Jewish tradition. The normative answer is the one that Hillel gave. It says, sure, I'll summarize it while standing on one leg. Do not do what is hateful to you, do not do to others. The rest is commentary. Now go and study. So now, that's a great answer, obviously, and it's withstood the test of time. But with the chutzpah that I have, I'd like to offer you my answer to the pagan who would come to the door, or non-pagan, just anyone, Jew, non-Jew. Could you summarize Judaism while standing on one leg? And I could say, I have an even shorter answer than Hillel, and that is, behavior is everything. Feelings are not. Behavior is. America's slide downward began in the 60s when feelings trumped behavior. When we asked kids, how do you feel about it, instead of telling them what was right and wrong. I don't care how kids feel about it. I care that they behave decently. If they like behaving decently, that's terrific. And if they don't like behaving decently, that's even more terrific. Because it means we have somehow convinced them to do so even though they don't like doing it. Behavior is everything. And I learned it in 4th grade in Yeshiva when the rabbi announced, and I tell this to all to non-Jewish audiences, and obviously I have to explain the Hebrew, and here's a mixed audience, but most of you will certainly know the original. The rabbi got up, Rabbi Fostag, 4th grade, Yeshiva Rambam, Brooklyn, New York. All right, boys, it's time to daven mincha. It's time for the afternoon prayers. Well, I always had chutzpah. I never had disrespect, but I always had chutzpah. And I walked over to him and I said, Rabbi Fostag, excuse me, I'm not in the mood to daven mincha. Rabbi Fostag was from Eastern Europe. He did speak English well, but there's no question, it was obvious to me in 4th grade, he had never heard mood and daven in the same sentence. So he stroked his beard, thought, and then said the following, which changed my life permanently. He said, using my Hebrew name, Shmuel, he goes, Shmuel Prager is not in the mood to daven mincha? So what? So what are two of the most powerful words parents, teachers, and society should use when people announce they're not in the mood. So what? Who's in the mood to do good things? Gee, I'm really in the mood to visit the sick in the hospital. You're in the mood to watch a movie. You're in the mood to go to Chinese restaurants. I mean, that's what you're in the mood for. Nobody's, I'm in the mood to get up early and go to work. If we followed what our moods did, we would deteriorate. The world would deteriorate. I saw a sign recently, follow your heart. I can't think of a worse piece of advice. If I would like to take the sign and just add the word don't. Don't follow your heart. That's like the worst possible advice. Follow my heart? Do you know what I would do? I mean, I don't want to tell you, but you can imagine. I followed my heart. You got to give me a break. I've been spending my life battling my heart. And the Torah says that, by the way. Don't follow your heart, right? And that's also mistranslated. It says, after which you go astray. It's not what it says. Don't follow your eyes and your heart, after which you prostitute yourself. Asher atem zonim achareihem. It's so powerful that the English language, Jewish translators don't want to translate it accurately. And the heart is deceptive in all things. I mean, my Christian listeners can cite the verse much better than most Jews can. That's what I learned. And that's what I have carried on in what I talk about on the air. Behavior is everything. And don't let mood be the prompter of how you behave. So yes, I would answer the person who said, summarize your religion while standing on one leg with, behavior is everything. Because I am preoccupied, and with this I will come to a close. I have been preoccupied since I was a child. I take no credit for it. It is as built in as, my love of classical music. I just fell in love with classical music the first time I heard a piece by Handel in my second year in high school. I don't take any credit for it. It's built in. Built into me was a hatred of cruelty. I always hated cruelty. I always hated evil. And I just was blessed in high school. I wrote it in the diary I kept in high school. I know what I want to do with my life, which is very rare, to be so lucky, to know your life's mission when you're 16 years old. But I wrote it, I have proof. And I said, my mission in life is to influence people to the good. I wrote that at 16, and that's all I've ever done, and I'm unbelievably lucky that I can make a living doing what I most want to do. That's very rare in life, and there is the day that I am not aware of my good fortune. The only thing I do take credit for, believe it or not, is what I got this award for. The hatred of evil and the love of goodness are built in, but courage, I've always had some, but that you have to fight for. Because I don't like the downside of what being courageous does. The hatred, I receive as much hatred as I do love. Maybe more love, but it's close. If you read the Jewish Journal, you'll know that the hatred outdoes the love on a ratio of 1,000 to 1. And I'm called terrible things often. So let me tell you what I do with it. It might help all of you. A lot of wonderful things are said to me, and a lot of awful things are said about me. So I decided at a very early age on a very wonderful attitude towards this. And what I did was I said to myself, I won't let praise go to my head, and I won't let hurtful words go to my heart. And that's a wonderful way to live a life. It keeps you honest, and it keeps you regulated on a good, moderate course. If you take praise very seriously, and that doesn't mean I don't listen, and when a Rabbi Bryski says these things, of course I take it seriously. He's such an extraordinary human being. So of course it means a great deal to me. But I'm talking about praise in general, and letting it go, ooh, I'm really wonderful. Wow, I really believe all these things people are saying. If you do, then the bad will also affect you. The only way for the hurtful not to affect you is if you don't allow the praise to affect you. You have to listen to what is said, you have to take it seriously, and you have to, and I am terribly grateful for every kind thing a person says to me, like strangers who meet me on airplanes or wherever. But I have never let them do damage or damage positively or damage negatively. And that has allowed me to say what I believe and let the chips fall. There's something else that allows me to say what I believe. Oddly enough, I take God seriously. I believe that fear of God is a very powerful idea. And I fear God more than I fear people. And I wish everybody did. But even most religious people, I really do believe, fear people more than they fear God. And therefore, they don't do what's right because they care much more, gee, what will my neighbor say about me, than what will God think about me? How will God judge me? That's courage giving. When you really do believe, ultimately, that's the one you have to answer to. So these are things that work on me on a daily basis. Because we get one life, and I don't want on my tombstone, he never got hurt. I don't want on my tombstone, he avoided pain. I would like to be able to, and I felt this my whole life, to say I gave it my best. And I know that no matter how much you give it your best, you can't solve it all. Otherwise you'll go crazy. I'm worried about America terribly, terribly. But I could only do what I can do. And you can do what you can do. But the thing is, you have to do what you can do. The notion that I can't save the world, therefore I won't do anything, is a bad notion. Again, I got that from Judaism, right? Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor v'eincha ben chorin lehibatel mimena. It is not up to you to fix the world, but you're not free to desist from trying. These are all fantastic lessons. And that's why I have been able to do something for which I am very grateful, and I hope many others do it as well. And that is to take from this gem called Judaism and bring it to the world, which yearns for Jews to teach from our Bible. I will end with a very powerful story from my earliest days in radio, on ABC Radio here in LA. George Green, the man who first hired me for radio, a legend in radio, rightfully so, the head of at that time, the biggest talk station. He needed a new person to be the moderator of a program called Religion on the Line. Sunday evenings, 2 hours, and it was commercial free, so it was like 3 hours. But it was 2 hours, and I was, whoever would be the moderator, moderated a priest, rabbi, and minister, different ones each week. I succeeded a woman named Carol Hemingway. Carol Hemingway, as you can tell by the name, would seem to anyone to be probably, if she's white, a white Anglo-Saxon WASP. Hemingway is not Jewish. I got called into George Green's office after about 2 years. He had never called me in. I thought I might be fired. He said, "Dennis, don't worry, we love you, you're great. I just want to ask you a question. When Carol Hemingway was the host of Religion on the Line, we got a lot of anti-Semitic mail. And it was amazing because she never once mentioned she's a Jew, and her name was completely not Jewish. And yet I got this anti-Jewish mail about Carol Hemingway. Every week you mention, or virtually every week, you mention on Religion on the Line, you're a committed Jew. In 2 years, I haven't gotten one anti-Jewish letter about you. How do you explain this?" And I said, "George, I think I can explain it. Americans trust Jewish Jews more than they trust non-Jewish Jews." And he thought it was a great answer and said, "Thanks." And it was a great answer. That's when Jews teach from what we were given at Sinai. Most non-Jews, especially Christians, are just so delighted. When I quote the Bible, Christians are much happier than Jews. Christians, wow, isn't that nice? You know how often I get a call, "Dennis, you're my rabbi?" Or my favorite, I keep telling you it's my favorite story, and then I give you another one. My favorite story happened with Rabbi Bryski, 1,000 people at one of my speeches for him just a few years ago. And I think it was almost exactly 500 Jews and 500 Christians. Woman gets up at the microphone to ask a question. She says, "Dennis, I just want you to know, I'm a Christian woman, and you are my favorite Jew." And I said, "Well, actually, your second favorite." She loved it. The audience loved it. Even Jews with beards loved it. They felt it was okay to make that crack, and it was a great moment. I am living the reality of how people can react to a Jew who humbly offers the insights of the Torah to the world. Why did God choose us? To hide from the world? Isn't that bizarre? I'm going to give the Torah to one of the smallest peoples on the face of the earth so that they don't teach it to anybody? Isn't that bizarre? And yet that is the idea that has permeated too much of Jewish life for too many years. Chabad is different, and it's one of the reasons we have such remarkable chemistry. So that's what I've tried to do, and to the extent that I've been successful, I thank God. I thank my Jewish education. I thank the Christians who give me this opportunity to do so. And I want to thank all of you for making this a very special evening for me. Thank you again.